ExamPrep.School. NC Surplus Lines Insurance Exam, exam code INSNC-Surplus60. There are 6 practice exams in this series. This video covers Practice Exam 1. The first 20 questions are free. In this video, we will be covering the following major categories for Practice Exam 1. Duties to insured, disclosures and notices. Insurer eligibility and unauthorized insurers. Licensing and licensee eligibility. NCSLA stamping office procedures. Penalties, violations, and enforcement. Placement requirements and diligent search. Premium tax, stamping fee, and filings. Rates, forms, and export exemptions. Records, reports, and affidavits. Let's walk through the format. I'll read each question and its choices. Let's get started. Question 1. Which statement accurately describes the minimum age and character requirements for an individual applying for a North Carolina Surplus Lines producer license? A. At least 18 years old and of good moral character. B. At least 21 years old with no felony convictions in the past 7 years. C. At least 18 years old and completion of a state-approved character assessment. D. At least 21 years old and a demonstrated record of industry experience. A countdown circle appears in the top right. Once it completes, the answer is revealed. You can pause at any time if you'd like longer to think. If you'd like additional practice covering more topics, see the description for our book. The correct answer is A. The correct answer is that applicants must be at least 18 years old and demonstrate good moral character, as specified by North Carolina Surplus Lines licensing statutes. Reason B is not correct. The law does not raise the minimum age to 21, nor impose a 7-year felony restriction. Reason C is not correct. There is no requirement for a formal state-approved character assessment. Applicants must simply demonstrate good moral character. Reason D is not correct. Experience and a minimum age of 21 are not prerequisites for a surplus lines producer license in North Carolina. Question 2. Teresa submits her application for a North Carolina Surplus Lines producer license. 10 days later, she obtains ink and roll fingerprint cards at her local police department and mails the completed cards to the commissioner's office 25 days after her initial application. According to the fingerprinting and background check process for applicants, what is the most likely outcome? A. The commissioner accepts the mailed fingerprint cards and forwards them to the FBI for processing. B. The submission is rejected, and she must use electronic live scan fingerprinting through a state-approved vendor. C. The cards are accepted but subject to an additional state processing fee before background check completion. D. The printed cards are filed and license issuance is delayed until FBI fingerprint results arrive. The correct answer is B. North Carolina requires fingerprint submissions via electronic live scan from an approved vendor. Ink and roll cards from a non-approved source are not accepted for background checks. Reason A is not correct. Ink and roll fingerprint cards from a non-approved facility are not accepted and cannot be forwarded for processing. Reason C is not correct. The process does not allow paper cards. There is no option to pay an extra fee to process mailed ink prints. Reason D is not correct. Paper fingerprint cards are not filed. Only approved electronic submissions are processed, so results cannot be awaited. Question 3. Under North Carolina law, which of the following is required of the individual designated as the responsible licensed ENS producer for a business entity applying for a surplus lines license? A. Be a resident of North Carolina. B. Have been continuously licensed as a North Carolina property casualty insurance producer for at least 2 years immediately prior to application. C. Hold an active surplus lines license in another state for at least 1 year. D. Maintain a minimum net worth of $100,000. The correct answer is B. The correct answer is that the designated producer must have been continuously licensed as a North Carolina property casualty insurance producer for at least 2 years immediately prior to application to ensure adequate experience and oversight. Reason A is not correct. Residency is not a statutory requirement. Non-resident licensed producers may be designated. Reason C is not correct. An out-of-state surplus lines license does not satisfy the North Carolina property casualty licensure experience requirement. Reason D is not correct. There is no net worth requirement for a designated licensed producer under North Carolina surplus lines licensing rules. Question 4. ABR Insurance Solutions. LLC designates Jane Doe, a resident licensed producer, as its responsible licensed producer for surplus lines operations. During an audit, regulators note missing diligent search logs and late stamping office filings over the past quarter. Under North Carolina's surplus lines laws, for which of the following is the responsible licensed producer primarily accountable? A. Supervising agents primarily to achieve internal sales quotas. B. Ensuring all surplus lines policies are placed solely with admitted insurers. C. Verifying diligent search records and stamping office filings are maintained and submitted promptly. D. Providing periodic license renewal reminders without conducting compliance reviews. The correct answer is C. The responsible licensed producer is charged with oversight of surplus lines placement processes, which includes ensuring that diligent search documentation and stamping office filings are accurately maintained and submitted on schedule as required by North Carolina surplus lines regulations. Reason A is not correct. A managerial focus on sales quotas does not align with the regulatory oversight responsibilities assigned to the responsible licensed producer. Reason B is not correct. Ensuring all surplus lines policies are placed with admitted insurers conflicts with the purpose of surplus lines placements and is not a duty of the responsible licensed producer. Reason D is not correct. License renewal reminders without compliance reviews fail to fulfill the record retention and filing obligations mandated by surplus lines regulations. Question 5. Under North Carolina surplus lines regulations, how frequently must a surplus lines producer renew their license and by what deadline? A. Biannually by June 30th. B. Biannually by March 31st. C. Annually by December 31st. D. Annually by September 30th. The correct answer is D. The correct answer is that surplus lines producer licenses in North Carolina must be renewed annually by September 30th of each year, as specified in the state's surplus lines statutes and renewal guidelines. Reason A is not correct. The cycle is annual, not biennial, and June 30th is not the renewal date. Reason B is not correct. License renewals occur every year rather than every 2 years. Reason C is not correct. Renewals must be completed by September 30th, not December 31st. Question 6. Dan obtained his surplus lines producer license on October 15th, which falls in the second quarter of the July 1st through June 30th CE cycle. The full year requirement is 6 hours, including at least 1 hour of ethics, 2 hours of state law, and 3 hours of general CE, prorated to 4.5 hours. 1 hour ethics, 2 hours state law, 1.5 hours general for Q2. Before renewal, Dan completed 2 hours of ethics and 1 hour of state law. Which additional CE must he complete to satisfy the renewal requirements? A. 1 hour of state law and 0.5 hour of general CE. B. 0.5 hour of state law and 1.5 hours of general CE. C. 1.5 hours of state law and 0.5 hour of general CE. D. 2 hours of general CE. The correct answer is A. This option is correct because in Q2, the CE requirement is prorated to 4.5 hours, 1 ethics, 2 state law, 1.5 general. The extra ethics hour counts as general, so Dan already has 1.0 general credit and needs only 0.5 general plus the remaining 1.0 required state law credit. Reason B is not correct. This distribution underestimates the state law requirement by assigning only 0.5 hour when 2 hours are required. Reason C is not correct. This option overallocates to state law beyond the 2-hour requirement and underallocates the general CE hours. Reason D is not correct. This choice ignores the mandatory state law component and assigns all remaining hours to general CE. Question 7. Under North Carolina surplus lines regulations, what is the minimum number of written declinations an insured must obtain from admitted insurers before placing coverage with a surplus lines insurer? A. 1 declination from an admitted insurer. B. 2 declinations from admitted insurers. C. 3 declinations from admitted insurers. D. 4 declinations from admitted insurers. The correct answer is C. North Carolina statute requires that the surplus lines broker obtain at least 3 written declinations from authorized insurers before placement with a surplus lines carrier, ensuring diligent search efforts are documented. Reason A is not correct. Requiring only 1 declination understates the statutory requirement for documenting insurer refusals. Reason B is not correct. 2 declinations do not satisfy the minimum search effort specified by North Carolina surplus lines rules. Reason D is not correct. 4 declinations exceed the statutory minimum and are not required by regulation. Question 8. A surplus lines producer performs a diligent search for property insurance on behalf of a corporate client. The producer contacts 3 admitted carriers and receives formal declinations. Which of the following would best document the required carrier declinations in the producer's filing? A. A set of handwritten phone log entries summarizing each carrier conversation without carrier-signed dates. B. Screenshots from an online rating platform indicating that admitted carriers would not accept the risk. C. An email sent to the client listing coverage terms quoted by admitted carriers that did not bind coverage. D. Copies of declination letters on each carrier's official letterhead, each dated and signed by an authorized underwriter. The correct answer is D. This option is correct because formal, carrier-signed, and dated declination letters on official letterhead constitute the most reliable evidence of carrier declinations required for the diligent search file. Reason A is not correct. Handwritten notes without carrier authorization or dates lack definitive proof of an official declination. Reason B is not correct. Screenshots of an online rating system do not substitute for a carrier's official declination documentation. Reason C is not correct. An email summary to the client does not provide direct evidence from the carrier that a formal declination was issued. Question 9. A surplus lines producer binds liability coverage on March 1st before completing the required diligent search. Under North Carolina rules, by which date must the producer finalize the diligent search to comply with timing requirements? A. Before the policy effective date, since search must be completed prior to binding coverage. B. Within 60 days after the policy effective date, as long as the affidavit is filed by then. C. Any time before the policy's expiration, provided the search is documented. D. Within 30 days after the policy effective date, before the stamping fee is submitted. The correct answer is D. This option is correct because North Carolina law allows binding prior to search completion only if the diligent search is finalized within 30 days of the effective date and before filing the stamping fee. Reason A is not correct. Search does not have to be fully completed before binding, but must be done within the 30-day window. Reason B is not correct. The state does not permit a 60-day period. The maximum allowable time is 30 days before stamping. Reason C is not correct. Search cannot be delayed until expiration. It must occur within 30 days of binding. Question 10. Which of the following best describes the statutory basis and primary purpose of the North Carolina surplus lines export list? A. It is established under GS 58-8-20 to provide a list of unauthorized insurers approved to accept risks that cannot be placed with admitted insurers. B. It is created under GS 58-9-10 to limit the types of risks that surplus lines producers can export to unauthorized insurers. C. It is authorized by Article 8 of Chapter 58 to list insurers that exclusively underwrite admitted insurance after placement attempts. D. It is instituted under Article 12 of Chapter 58 to guide premium tax remittance to the stamping office. The correct answer is A. The North Carolina export list is specifically created by General Statute 58-8-20, and its purpose is to identify unauthorized insurers eligible to accept surplus lines, risks that cannot be placed with admitted carriers. Reason B is not correct. This cites an incorrect statute and misstates the function of the export list. Reason C is not correct. The export list does not cover admitted insurers, and this misrepresents its statutory authority. Reason D is not correct. This option confuses tax procedures with the purpose and statutory basis of the export list. Question 11. A North Carolina surplus lines producer submitted a request to add a new risk category to the surplus lines export list on July 18th. The NCSLA stamping office's process is: requests received by the 15th of a month are reviewed that month. Review lasts 30 calendar days beginning on the first day of the next month. Upon completion, the office publishes the updated export list on its website within 5 business days. Changes become effective 10 calendar days after publication. Based on this process, what is the earliest effective date for the requested new risk category? A. August 10th. B. August 15th. C. September 15th. D. September 10th. The correct answer is C. The request missed the July 15th cutoff, so it enters the review cycle starting August 1st and ending August 30th. The stamping office then publishes within 5 business days in early September, and the change takes effect 10 calendar days after publication, landing on September 15th. Reason A is not correct. This date assumes the review began in July despite the request missing the July 15th cutoff. Reason B is not correct. This date applies the 10-day waiting period to an assumed July publication rather than the actual September publication. Reason D is not correct. This option shortens the required 10-day post-publication waiting period to 5 days. Question 12. Which statement must a licensed surplus lines producer include in the affidavit confirming a diligent search of the admitted market? A. A declaration that written declinations from at least 3 admitted insurers were obtained. B. A declaration that no admitted insurer was willing to provide the required coverage after a diligent search. C. A declaration that coverage was placed with the non-admitted insurer offering the lowest premium. D. A declaration that the producer advised the insured of all available admitted market options. The correct answer is B. The correct answer reflects the statutory requirement that the affidavit must attest that no admitted insurer was willing to provide the required coverage following a diligent search of the admitted market. Reason A is not correct. The law does not mandate a minimum number of declinations. It requires attestation that no admitted insurer would offer coverage. Reason C is not correct. The affidavit focuses on search results, not on premium comparisons among non-admitted insurers. Reason D is not correct. Producers are not required in the affidavit to state that they advise the insured of every admitted market option. Question 13. A North Carolina surplus lines producer places coverage with an eligible non-admitted insurer. The policy is effective April 10th and was issued on April 15th, with the stamping office receiving it on May 5th. According to North Carolina requirements, By what date must the producer file the surplus lines affidavit after placement? A. May 10th. B. April 30th. C. May 15th. D. July 31st. The correct answer is A. The surplus lines affidavit must be submitted within 30 days of the policy effective date, making the due date May 10th. Reason B is not correct. This date reflects 30 days after policy issuance rather than the effective date. Reason C is not correct. This uses a 15-day post-end-of-month rule applicable to reports, not the affidavit deadline. Reason D is not correct. This aligns with quarterly tax filings, not the individual affidavit filing deadline. Question 14. Based on the information provided under the NRRA, which state is considered the insured's home state for non-admitted insurance placement? A. Delaware. B. South Carolina. C. Virginia. D. North Carolina. The correct answer is D. The correct answer is the state where the insured's principal place of business, executive headquarters, is located, irrespective of state of incorporation or premium distribution. Reason A is not correct. Incorporation state is not used to determine home state under the NRRA. Reason B is not correct. Premium share alone doesn't define home state when a principal place of business exists. Reason C is not correct. Largest premium volume is secondary when a principal place of business is established. Question 15. Under North Carolina law, what is the current surplus lines premium tax rate and which statutory citation establishes it? A. 4.85% under G, S58-3-280. B. 3% under G, S58-3-280. C. 4.85% under G, S58-3-40. D. 3.5% under G, S58-3280 amps. The correct answer is A. The correct answer is that the tax rate for surplus lines insurance in North Carolina is 4.85%, as established by NCGS Section 58-3-280, which specifically imposes this rate on taxable surplus lines premiums. Reason B is not correct. The 3% rate is not the correct surplus lines rate, and the statute cited applies to other lines of business. Reason C is not correct. That citation imposes the premium tax rate for admitted insurers, not surplus lines policies. Reason D is not correct. There is no 3.5% rate under that subsection. The correct rate and citation differ. Question 16. Which of the following is included in the taxable premium base when calculating North Carolina surplus lines premium tax? A. Returned premium sent back to the insured. B. Stamping fees remitted through the NCSLA office. C. Federal surplus lines excise taxes. D. Policy fees charged by the surplus lines broker. The correct answer is D. The taxable premium base in North Carolina includes policy fees charged by the surplus lines broker. Stamping fees and federal excise taxes are not part of the taxable base, and return premiums reduce the taxable amount rather than being included. Reason A is not correct. Returned premium reduces the taxable amount and therefore is not included in the taxable base. Reason B is not correct. Stamping fees are administrative charges and are not subject to surplus lines premium tax. Reason C is not correct. Federal excise taxes are collected separately and do not form a part of the state taxable premium base. Question 17. A surplus lines agent places an annual policy with a $10,000 premium. The insured cancels the policy after 3 months, and the insurer issues a pro rata return premium for the remaining 9 months. If the North Carolina surplus lines tax rate is 3%, How much premium tax must the agent remit for this policy on the quarterly report? A. $300. B. $225. C. $75. D. $150. The correct answer is C. The taxable premium is the net retained premium after pro rata return. $10,000 minus $7,500. Return equals $2,500. At 3% tax, $2,500 multiplied by 0.03 equals $75. Reason A is not correct. Calculates tax on the full premium rather than net retained premium. Reason B is not correct. Applies the tax rate to the returned premium instead of the retained portion. Reason D is not correct. Assumes a half-term cancellation, not the 3-month cancellation described. Question 18. Under InsNC-CSLA rules, what stamping fee rate is assessed per $100 of surplus lines premium, and on what premium basis is it calculated? A. 75 cents per $100 of net surplus lines premium after fees. B. 50 cents per $100 of gross surplus lines premium. C. 50 cents per $100 of net earned premium. D. 25 cents per $100 of gross surplus lines premium. The correct answer is B. The stamping fee is set at 50 cents per $100, equivalent to 0.5%, and is calculated on the gross surplus lines premium before any deductions. Reason A is not correct. This option uses an incorrect rate and applies it to net premium after fees, which conflicts with the gross premium basis. Reason C is not correct. This option applies the correct rate but to net earned premium instead of the required gross surplus lines premium. Reason D is not correct. This option misstates the rate as 25 cents per $100, which is half of the actual stamping fee rate. Question 19. A surplus lines broker placed a commercial general liability policy with a $150,000 premium and paid the 1% stamping fee to the NCSLA stamping office. The insured then requested endorsements increasing premium by $30,000 and decreasing premium by $10,000. What net stamping fee adjustment should the stamping office calculate for these endorsements? A. $100. B. $200. C. $300. D. $400. The correct answer is B. The correct answer is that the stamping office should calculate the net premium change by offsetting the decrease against the increase. 30,000 minus 10,000 equals 20,000. And apply the 1% stamping fee to that net amount, resulting in a $200 adjustment. Reason A is not correct. This amount reflects applying the stamping fee only to the net decrease rather than the net change of both endorsements. Reason C is not correct. This amount reflects applying the stamping fee solely to the increase and ignores the subsequent decrease. Reason D is not correct. This amount reflects applying the stamping fee to the sum of increase and decrease without netting the transactions. Question 20. Under North Carolina surplus lines regulations, quarterly surplus lines premium tax reports must be filed by which deadline relative to the end of the calendar quarter? A. By the 15th day of the second month following quarter end. B. By the 15th day of the month following quarter end. C. Within 30 days after quarter end. D. By the last day of the month following quarter end. The correct answer is B. This option is correct because North Carolina requires surplus lines quarterly premium tax reports to be submitted by the 15th day of the month immediately following each calendar quarter's end. Reason A is not correct. Refers to the second month following quarter end, but the deadline falls in the first month following the quarter. Reason C is not correct. Mentions a 30-day period, but the requirement is a set calendar date rather than a rolling day count. Reason D is not correct. specifies the last day rather than the fixed 15th day of the month following quarter end. Enjoyed this practice test? Tap like, hit subscribe, and share it with a classmate. Got a question we should tweak? Comment below, we read them all. Find full practice exam books in the description or at ExamPrep.School.